Hello and welcome to Kenpo Karate Blocking and Checking Part 1. My name is Sascha Williams. And we're going to be talking today about blocks and checks, how to use them, when to use them, what is the difference between them, how important are they, and how do they relate to our strikes. So let's talk about blocks first. There are many blocks in Kenpo Karate that use force against force. We usually call them striking blocks. And the whole objective is to try to develop a lot of speed and power as you strike your opponent's punching arm, right? And to redirect his strike using our own force. But we also have blocks that don't use force. Blocks that actually go along with the opponent's force. Blocks that don't attempt to oppose the opponent's strike. Blocks that don't attempt to stop the opponent's strike. Right? We usually call those parrying blocks. Kenpo Karate is a hard and soft style combination. And nowhere is that really going to be more apparent than when we try to block, check, or redirect our opponent's attacks. So we have blocks that use force against force. We have blocks that go along with the opponent's force. But we also have some blocks that don't do either of those things. For example, we have position blocks, which don't use any striking force on our part, but that also don't redirect or parry the opponent's punch out of the way. Usually these are blocks that employ what we call neutral force, which basically depends on our body alignment. I'm going to explain that a little bit more in detail later. Now, in addition to blocks, in Kenpo we also have checks. And looking at how blocks and checks are used together and how they're used together with striking is really what makes Kenpo what it truly is. Now, checks are different from blocks in several ways. First of all, a block is against an actual existing strike. A strike that actually has speed and power and is coming towards us. Right? A check is not meant to be used against that at all. A check is meant to be used against a potential strike. In other words, our opponent has not yet completed his strike. He's not even probably has barely started it. Right? And there is no speed and power you have to worry about yet. So checks are against potential strikes. Secondly, a block and a check are different, where a block has to be applied on the opponent's striking arm or striking leg that's coming at you. Now, with a check, that is sometimes the case, but it doesn't have to be the case at all. There are a lot of checks in Kenpo that are a lot more sophisticated than that. So what Kenpo teaches us is that we can stop our opponent's striking arm without ever touching it. And we're doing that by controlling so much of the remainder of our opponent's body that he's unable to use that strike without us ever actually blocking that particular strike. So we might protect ourselves against our opponent's left punch, for example, by controlling not his left arm, but by controlling his right arm instead. Or we might control our opponent's arms and shoulders by controlling his legs and checking his legs. Like in this case, for example, where we do a knife edge kick to the back of our opponent's right knee, and by that we're controlling how our opponent rotates, and we're controlling his height and his width, and we're making it almost impossible for him to retaliate against us with his arms. Now, a third major difference between blocking and checking is